Hello and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri. Today is Monday, February 10th. I hope you had a great weekend. I know a lot of people were watching the ball game yesterday, the big Super Bowl bowl game, football, American. We did watch the end of it. I'm joking around. I'm not that lost when it comes to sports. I'm just jerking your chain. But we watched the end of it. It was yeah, I don't get that into games unless I'm with people who are really into it. And my husband, he likes Patrick Mahomes because he went to Texas Tech. And they didn't win. The Eagles won, but I actually think that was more exciting that they won because I heard that the other team had won the past 2 years. So, you know, it's nice to have an upset. But I hope you had fun if that's what you were doing, if you were watching that. I did watch I did watch the clips online. Did you guys see the clips of Taylor Swift getting booed at the game? They put her on the jumbotron and everyone booed, and she was like looking around like, "What?" I don't think she was expecting that. That's kind of funny. I don't know why they booed her. People, of course, are speculating it's because she became very political and threw her support in for Kamala, and I don't know. But I do know she was booed, and that was kind of funny. Um, being on a jumbotron while you're being booed. Then Trump was there, and the opposite happened. Everyone, when he was on the jumbo, everyone just applauded and erupted in applause, and that's pretty cool too. So, yeah, Spectral Citizen, I saw that. I saw that clip. I saw the juxtaposition of the booing for Taylor Swift and the applause for Trump. The sports ball contest was yesterday. Yes, Kevin Anderson. Yes. Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. Late and gay, somebody says. Yes, late and gay, but we're here. I am dealing with older people things. Got I've had some back issues, whatever. Got a big old crick going on in my neck and my shoulder. And if you're older like me, you know what that's like. Let me just tell you, young people, I specifically remember being young and a friend of mine who was in her 50s telling me about how when you get older, you're going to have to do lots of stretching and yoga and all this stuff because everything starts to crackle and pop and snap, crackle and pop. And she had a little trampoline that she kept beside the bed, like a little miniature trampoline that she would use. Oh, that's better. That lighting's better. And so when you're young, you hear that and it goes in one ear and out the other, but it's all true. Just know. And the more exercise you do now while you're young, the easier it's going to be for you when you're older. So to keep all of those joints, the connective tissue, everything working smoothly like a well-oiled machine, the more you do when you're young, the better. Stretching, aerobics, Pilates, yoga, whatever it is. There you go. So so that's just my little tip for young people. Okay, we're getting into today. Here we're going to talk more about Elon Musk, Trump, Elon Musk, DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. My husband was here, a special guest on Friday, which was a lot of fun to have him translating some of the German for us and some documentary clips that we were watching. So on Friday, we talked about Elon Musk and DOGE going in and revealing just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how much money, how many taxpayer dollars have been going to fund well, who knows what. We're still in that stage. Who knows what. And so Friday we talked specifically about USAID, which is an organization that receives a 40 billion with a B, $40 billion budget a year of taxpayer dollars. We talked about some of the more suspicious places that money was going. And now, today, we're going to talk about some of the other things that Elon is uncovering. And you know what's funny? They hate it. The media hates it. The establishment hates it. The leftists hate it. The purpose of DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, is to go in and trim off the fat and to figure out where are we overspending? Where are we losing money? Do we even know where all this money is going? Can we make things more efficient and reduce a lot of this overhead? we are in serious debt. Our debt only increases every year, and we continue to act as a country as if it's not going to come, and the chickens are not going to come home to roost. Can we do something about this, right? Can we save the taxpayers some money? Can we cut some of this bloat? Can we figure out if we're wasting taxpayer dollars, or even worse, if there's fraud going on with taxpayer dollars? And you would think this is something everybody would be excited about. Nope. Nope. Not the left, not the media, not the establishment class, not the bureaucrats or the administrative class. They're pissed. Here, let's look at some articles about it. This is from CNN. Musk charges on with new targets in sight and Trump's blessing. This is an article from today. And if you'll look here, you see the subheading is, "It's about intimidating workers. Lawmaker who left DOGE caucus speaks out." The vast and opaque power of Elon Musk is only growing as he seeks new targets. They call it targets. Okay. Targets for his federal government shredding machine. That sounds great. I voted for a federal government shredding machine. I'm glad we got one. That's like the best. Federal government shredding machine is that's what I wrote on the ballot. That's what I want. The head of President Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency is closing in on his latest victim. Victim. Look at this, the choice of words, the choice of language, right? Closing in on his latest victim, an independent government agency set up to shield Americans from the Wall Street excesses that caused the Great Recession. Employees of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau were abruptly told Sunday afternoon that the watchdog's Washington, D.C. headquarters will be closed this week and that they should work remotely, a day after Trump's budget chief, Russell Voigt, took over as acting director and told staff to stop fighting financial abuse. Stop fighting financial abuse? I don't think that's what he said. This is how CNN is describing it. To stop, he said, please stop fighting financial abuse. I don't think that's what he said. Okay, so far, all we know is that they're closed for a week. So Musk wrote on X on Friday, CFPB RIP. The agency, which has long been in the GOP sights, seemed to be following a similar path to doom as the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, which we covered on Friday, which has saved millions of lives around the world and promoted democracy for decades, to the tune of $40 billion of our dollars a year. And that's not all they were doing. We watched on Friday, if you missed it, we watched specifically money that they were giving to an organization that brags about having performed coups in other countries, having gone in at the behest of the U.S. government and helped to overturn election results, overturn leaders, a lot of shady stuff that's happening with our tax dollars. So, but they always like to talk about it. This is the mask that it wears, right? Like, oh, saving lives, promoting democracy. It says that Musk has eviscerated USAID. On Sunday, Trump called USAID crazy and a big scam. Trump's untrimmed use of executive power to throttle agencies enshrined in the law, dismiss staff, and halt spending already approved by Congress is raising alarms that he's openly defying the Constitution, seizing power that the presidency does not have. This is bullshit. Do you know this is bullshit? And this is Darvo. This is like a psychopath, deny, and reverse victim offender. Listen, this is something psychopaths and narcissists do, where they accuse their target of the thing they're doing. So you guys, the media's cool with this. You're cool with what's been happening to the American people for decades, which is all of this power that the federal government has seized, which is not constitutional. You're cool with that. But when somebody goes in and says, hey, let's reduce the size of federal government, it was never intended to be this large. It was never intended to waste the taxpayer dollar. Like, wait, let's reduce the size. Then you guys get angry. Do you guys remember? Let me just look this up because I'm blanking on the date. I think it was 1861. No, I thought it was 1913. Yeah, 1913. Okay, 1913 is when they instituted the income tax. And if you go back and look at what they were saying at the time, what politicians were saying at the time when they got this thing approved, is they said it would never go above like 1, 2, 3%. Like, we'll never take more than that. Look, trust us, that we're the government. We don't want to take more than like a percentage of your income. Maybe 2, maybe 3. We'll never go above 3. Never go above 3%. We just want to take a tiny, small percentage. Can you imagine back then if they had said, hey, let us take some of your income. We need it for the federal government needs it. How much do you need? About 30%. Like a third? What? What? Why do you need that much? What's it for? You don't need to know. We're going to be spreading democracy and saving millions of lives. And don't ask any questions, though. If you ask questions or if you put a halt to the funds or if you try to see where all this money's going, $40 billion a year, just to one of these agents, just to one USAID, you try to see where all that money's going and you figure out it's going to some crazy places like condoms. And was it Iraq or Iran where we were spending millions on condoms? Like, oh, it's going to this and to that. And you don't need to know. Yes, frankly, the worst. We are frog and we have been boiled. And I just love the fact that the media is now acting like, how dare he use executive powers to look into what we're spending all of the taxpayers' dollars on? How dare he look into all of these unelected government officials and try to reduce the bloat? How dare he audit the Treasury Department and see what we're spending money on, the taxpayer money? How dare he? And the way they characterize it is like an abuse of power. No, you guys are engaging in abuse of power. That's why he's doing this. We want it to stop. This is what we voted for. We pay your salaries. We pay for all of this. And apparently we pay for sex change operations in some countries, and we pay for condoms in other countries, and we pay for all this stuff we don't even know about. Apparently, we pay for, what was that list we were looking at? Feminist indoctrination in Middle Eastern countries. Like, we pay for all this crap. Teaching journalists in third world countries to use gender non-binary language. We pay for that. We don't want to pay for that. Do you understand? We don't want to pay for any of this. You didn't get our permission. You want to talk about overreach of power? Texas sheep lady, the condoms are used to make drone bombs. Are they? Are you joking or are you for real? I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. Okay, let's just continue this article. So they're like, but the role of Musk with his unelected power is unprecedented. Unelected power. Once again, you guys deign, to talk about unelected power. I can't even believe it. Unelected power is what we are trying to get rid of. That's what you guys have been about for decades. All of these unelected bureaucrats, this waste of money. So we've got this one guy in there whose job it is, his department, is to reduce the size of federal government, to make it run more efficiently, to quit wasting taxpayer dollars. And once he's done, I mean, what is it? They're supposed to wrap up DOGE. His last act will be to fire himself. So, yeah, unelected power. That's what you guys are used to. The role of Musk with his unelected power is unprecedented. The richest man in the world is firing or suspending government workers. Oh my gosh. Good. Good. Destroying U.S. soft global power. Is he? Destroying U.S. soft global power? And accessing data and private information about potentially millions of Americans, all with zero accountability. You don't care about him accessing the private information of Americans. You don't. You care about him accessing the private information of all these different departments, these government departments. That's why you've got people quitting and saying they're not going to participate in an audit of the government. You guys want to hire 87,000 IRS agents to audit us, to look into our private information. You don't have a problem with looking in our private information. You have a problem with us looking in yours. That's what you have a problem with. You have a problem with us looking in yours, which is not supposed to be private. We want to know what you're spending money on. We have a right to know. Multiple courts have now stepped in to temporarily halt Trump and Musk plans, but everything is trending towards one of the most significant showdowns over the scope of presidential power in modern history, which is destined for a Supreme Court whose conservative majority has an expansive view of executive authority. Plenty of people have predicted that Musk and Trump are headed for a breakup given their volatile personalities and need to be the alpha dog in every room. But Trump is showing no public sign of tiring of the Tesla pioneer, who is acting as the lead agent in the president's revenge and disruption agenda. Revenge and disruption? That's what you guys do. Revenge. The president even shrugged off. Revenge. It's not revenge. Do you get, like, they're doing what we want them to do. This is what we elected Trump for. We want to know where our money's going. We want to reduce the size of the federal government. We're happy with this. Thanks. It's not revenge. It's doing what should have been done a long time ago. Where's this money going? We're in massive debt. First thing you do if you're in massive debt is you sit down and you figure out, where's all the money going? What are my monthly expenses? What's coming in every month and what is going out and where's it going and what can I cut? The president even shrugged off a Time magazine cover that showed Musk behind the Oval Office desk. Oh yeah, that's the other thing is the media, they're so funny. They keep trying to like exploit or push some kind of divide between Musk and Trump. And you'll notice you probably have leftist friends doing this. They love to share memes and cartoons and stuff that show Elon as president. I saw one the other day with Elon and JD Vance driving a car and Trump, it was a cartoon and Trump was in the back seat with one of those little kids steering wheels pressing it. And Elon and JD Vance were saying, "Oh, haha, it's so funny. He doesn't even realize he's not steering the car." And they love to do this stuff because they think it's going to get under Trump's skin and he's going to get rid of Elon because he's going to be so jealous. They want Trump to think that we all think that Elon's running the country. None of us thinks that. I mean, the leftists, I guess they do. They believe their media. But they keep trying to push. It's kind of funny, right? How they're trying to push that, like hoping there'll be some big split. Maybe there will be. I don't know. But I haven't seen any signs of that online. I saw Elon tweeting that he loves President Trump more as much as any straight man can love another straight man. Seemed pretty amicable. Okay, quote, "I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific," Trump said in a Super Bowl interview that aired on Fox on Sunday. As to whether he trusted Musk, Trump replied, "Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it. He's so into it." Their alliance might be more enduring than many expect. In many ways, Trump and Musk have complementary goals. Each has shown in their business careers that they abhor rules and regulations that constrain their actions. The political activity of the president and the tech visionary also shows disdain for checks and balances. What? That's what DOGE is about, is reinstituting checks and balances. The federal government has all this unrestrained power. Why? Musk has recently been agitating on behalf of far-right parties in Europe. Oh, has he? Thanks, CNN, for telling us that without giving us any details so we can confirm it for ourselves. Who's the far-right party? Who is it? I don't trust you at all. Who is it? You just tell us that like we're supposed to believe it. Because last I checked, you called Trump far-right, which is ridiculous. You called liberals like RFK Jr. far-right. You're crazy. So this is just this whole paragraph right here is just meant to smear far-right parties in Europe, for example, mirroring Trump's contempt for the will of voters in 2020. Interesting election year. Will of the voters in 2020. Ahead of midterm elections in 2026, Republicans have every incentive to keep on the good side of the ex-owner who threw many millions of dollars into electing Trump and fellow Republicans last year. Now look at this section. Washington might be reeling, but many voters approve of Trump's fast start. We do. So far, Trump's political blitzkrieg, featuring endless TV appearances, a blizzard of executive orders, and an appearance on the NFL's Big Day Sunday, seems to be working. A new CBS News poll Sunday showed that 53% of adults approve of his handling of the presidency, a figure higher than his typical ratings during his first term. Some 70% of poll respondents said that what the president has done so far are the same things he promised in the campaign. So 70% say he's delivering. Like he's doing what he said he would do. And I'm sure there's some leftists in that number as well who are like, yeah, he's doing this the way he said he would do. He's doing it. Like he's doing what he said he would do. And those of us who want him to do those things, 53% of us are happy. Pursuing what he calls a common sense agenda, Trump has launched a hardline immigration purge, banned transgender athletes from women's sports, and targeted federal bureaucrats. Many of these issues resonated with Trump's loyal base and a wider cohort of swing voters in last year's election. And then it goes on to say, but there's warning signs and, this poll and like, they're basically like, they even mention here that the Democrats have tried to goad Trump by referring to President Musk, which is what I was talking about. Let's get down to this part about Musk. Cabinet secretaries and GOP leaders fold before Musk's authority. The president's solid public support for Musk explains why top Trump officials, cabinet secretaries, and senior Republicans in Congress fanned out across Sunday morning news shows to defend Musk, even though his dominance is eclipsing their power. Is it? Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem told CNN's Dana Bash that she would back Trump and Musk closing the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which falls under her authority, even though its role is mandated by law. Quote, I would say, yeah, get rid of FEMA the way it exists today, Noem said on State of the Union, adding that the funds normally used for FEMA should just be sent to state and local authorities after disasters. This would represent a significant political risk for Trump, who suggested, quote, getting rid of FEMA when touring North Carolina flood damage last month. In many previous disasters, including hurricanes or wildfires, local officials have sometimes struggled without the expertise or scale of FEMA, and natural disasters have the potential to backfire on presidents politically if they are mismanaged. Noem also insisted that she had no problem with Musk burrowing deep into the DHS, which she insisted needed to be downsized, the Department of Homeland Security. Her interview included a remarkable exchange underscoring the SpaceX boss's immense power. Noem was asked whether she was okay with Musk, a private citizen who is not confirmed by Congress, accessing private data about disaster victims, as reported by the Washington Post. Quote, the president has authorized him to have access to that, Noem said. And you feel comfortable with that? Bash asked. Noem replied, absolutely. We can't trust our government anymore. But you are the government now, said Bash. Yes, and that's what I'm saying, is that the American people now are saying that we have had our personal information shared and out there in the public, Noem said. Bash added, Elon Musk has access to it. You just said he does, to which Noem replied, yes, but Elon Musk is part of the administration that's helping us identify where we can find savings and what we can do. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, a former member of Congress who has supported USAID in the past, justified Musk's move in shuttering many of the agency's programs, which critics say will offer U.S. adversaries such as Russia and China a chance to fill the vacuum in the developing world. He told NBC's Meet the Press that the mission of USAID was worthy when it, quote, is aligned with U.S. objectives, and U.S. objectives meet the president's objectives as a commander-in-chief, end quote. He added, but that is not the case. Many of these senior aid officials have their own agenda and have gone in their own direction. Waltz pointed out that the Secretary of State Marco Rubio had issued a waiver for USAID programs that focus on life-saving nutrition and medicines, but many aid workers around the world have told CNN there's huge confusion about what is included in programs and projects everywhere are shutting down. Another agency that could soon be feeling the presence of Musk is the Pentagon. The issue of the SpaceX chief's billions of dollars in federal contracts raises particular red flags here, although the second Trump administration seems utterly unconcerned with ethics issues and conflicts of interest involving Musk or any other senior official. Let me just put a pause on this for a second. I'm going to come back to this about the Pentagon. But I want to show you, since we were talking about FEMA. Now, Robbie Starbuck, you guys will recognize him. He has done a lot of great work in exposing the companies that had DEI initiatives, woke DEI crap going on behind the scenes. And he was instrumental in a lot of corporations in 2024 finally scrapping their DEI programs, which has been great. So you'll recognize Robbie. So he put out this whole list here, and he says the FEMA situation is much worse than what we thought it was. It's much worse than them spending $59 million on illegals as our citizens still suffer after natural disasters. Per the great work of Brianna Morello, we know that FEMA spent hundreds of millions, not just 59 million, hundreds of millions on illegals over the past 4 years. And that's only one agency. That's just FEMA. Total betrayal, hundreds of millions of dollars. And if you go through and look at these headlines, he started compiling these and trying to keep track of just every time we saw FEMA money going to illegals in the past 4 years. And you can see here on the left, these are two headlines from FEMA. Department of Homeland Security announces $380 million in additional funding to communities receiving migrants. Here's another one from FEMA. Department of Homeland Security announces distribution of more than $77 million in congressional funding for communities receiving migrants. Here's another one. Department of Homeland Security announces distribution of more than $12 million in funding. Here's another one. FEMA awards $110 million to the Emergency Food and Shelter Program to assist migrants. Here's another one from Politico. New York City to get $104.6 million from FEMA for asylum seekers. Here's another one. Department of Homeland Security announces $300 million in direct funding to communities receiving migrants and $340 million for a new competitive awards process. Why? Why are all these hundreds of millions of dollars coming from FEMA, the Federal Emergency and Management Response? Like, why is it coming from that department? Again, this is just one department. Why is it coming from that and going to basically what looks like an operation to move illegal aliens, illegal immigrants into the U.S.? Their argument seems to be, well, once we have all these millions and millions of illegal immigrants, it becomes an emergency. So we need emergency funding from, so we're going to take it from, we're allocating it via FEMA, right? That seems to be their argument. But why are we allowing it to become an emergency in the first place? See, our position is, why are you letting this happen? Our position is, close the border. Stop doing catch and release. Start deportations. We saw ICE. We've seen in these first few weeks, we saw Dr. Phil in bed with ICE. We've seen in these first few weeks, ICE being able to, with their, their hands free now to do their job, going in where there are known criminals, violent offenders, rapists, people who violently assaulted people, thieves, where there are known criminal offenders who are also illegal aliens. We've seen them arresting them finally, and deporting these people. Why hasn't this already been happening? Everything that the left has done in this country in the past few years has been upside down. They're like, we're going to create this emergency, this illegal emergency, and then we're going to take money from FEMA to pay for it, millions and millions of dollars. And if you look at some of their justifications, this is so funny. This is the kind of stuff they say. Look at this. This guy, Richard Angwin, I was looking at this. He says, this post's claim that FEMA is misusing disaster funds for migrants is misinformation. Oh, is it, Richard? Now, look what he says. It's not that anything said in it is wrong. It's true. This is what's happening. FEMA's been sending hundreds of millions of dollars to this illegal immigrant emergency, right? But he says, here's why it's misinformation, according to Richard. FEMA funds for migrants come from separate allocations, not disaster relief. Check facts before sharing. So you just name it. You just give it a magic name and say, these FEMA funds are going to be used for migrants now. And that makes it okay. It's still FEMA funds. It's still FEMA funds. You're still sending hundreds of millions in FEMA funds to illegal immigrants. So don't worry, Keri. They moved it over into a second account, and they titled that account, "This is the FEMA money we're giving to illegal aliens," and that makes it okay. That's what he's saying. That's a long name for a bank account, but that's what, look, we just moved it over into another account. It's still a FEMA account, don't we? It's still the same bank account and everything's FEMA account, FEMA funds, but we're naming it. We're going to put it in this little envelope, and this envelope is titled FEMA money that we're giving to illegal immigrants. And there we go. And that's cool. Now it's cool. It's all cool now. So stupid. By the way, this I saw in the comments too. I just thought I would point this out because a lot of New Yorkers are very familiar with this, but people outside of New York don't know about you're not as familiar with it. But I have friends in New York. There are so many hotels there that the city of New York, that taxpayers are paying for the entire hotel to be given to illegal immigrants, to house illegal immigrants. And this person in the comments is just highlighting one of these. The city of New York pays $220 million to rent the entire Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan to house illegal migrants. The hotel is owned by the government of Pakistan, and the deal was part of $1.1 billion IMF bailout package to help Pakistan avoid defaulting on their international debt. Prior to this sweetheart deal, the hotel had been closed since 2020, having long struggled with occupancy and in dire need of renovation. So they're like, oh, this is a good deal. Let's take $220 in New York taxpayer funds, and let's use it to house these illegal immigrants. This is a great deal. I'm just still laughing at the thing they tell us every time about the FEMA money. And they said this back when we were wondering what's happening in North Carolina. And that's when they first uncovered this 59 million that, had been spent on illegal immigrants. And it turns out it's hundreds of millions. But back then they said the same thing. They said, hey, don't spread misinformation. Yes, it's FEMA money, but we allocated that FEMA money for illegal aliens. It's okay. It doesn't make it okay. When did that start happening, right? Like, it doesn't make it okay. I have to thank someone, Randy Wallen. Thank you, Randy, for the $10 super chat. Sorry if you were waiting. I just saw it. Randy says, remember, Keri doesn't get money from USAID. That's true. I don't. Send her a few bucks, and please like, comment, and subscribe. And by all means, share on other platforms and with your friends. Keri is nice and they'll like her. Thank you, Randy. especially if there's any leftists in your life who are a little bit open-minded, or maybe they're displeased with some of the stuff in the previous administration and they have questions. Like, those are the kind of people I think a lot of times I have that kind of person in mind when I'm making a video. So I appreciate it, Randy. No USA dollars here. Also, no Russians have funded me. Like some of the other news that we saw break last year. I don't have any of that sweet Russian money. I keep getting told that I'm taking what did they say? Like I'm on the I'm sucking Jewish COCK, and that I'm a Zionist shill and paid by Jews, or that's not true either. Where is all of my Jewish money? I don't have any. There's no countries or ethnicities or genders. There's 98 genders out there. None of them are funding me. Sorry, it makes me laugh. As long as I'm laughing. Okay. I want to share this with you. I have this pulled up. We're going back to that article, but this is pretty funny. So all the press, of course, is doing these pieces like the CNN piece that we're reading, where they're freaking out and they're like, Elon Musk and Trump are just destroying everything and destroying the government. And it's horrible. It's like, no, this is what we wanted. We want to reduce the size of the federal government. We want to know where our money's going. Even if you're on the left, don't you want to know where your tax dollars are going? Shouldn't we know? Shouldn't we agree and be like, yeah, that's a good idea? Or even if we disagree and we know it's going somewhere that we disagree with, at least we know. At least we know. So this has all been positive. But my friend Libby, she shared this clip from CBS, and it's a person who works presumably at USAID, I think. And this person chose to remain anonymous. And so CBS did the creepy shadow thing and the voice changing thing to disguise this person's identity because they still work in the government. And they want to talk about how horrible this is, what Trump is doing. And Libby was right on to say, look, you can tell this person, well, she called them a Democrat, but I'm going to say leftist. You can tell they're a leftist because of the way they speak. And I got, like, even more specifically, this person, listen to the way they talk. They speak with upspeak, the way that a lot of leftists speak, where they end everything as if it's a question. Like, you'll hear it. I'll pause it as it goes. But if you don't know what upspeak is, it's a lot of women do it more than men, but it's that sort of where I'm talking to you as if everything I'm saying is something that is sort of a question, even though it's a statement. Is that a good example? It's like that. So that there's a lot of reasons why you can tell this is a leftist. Let's just play it. And the whole thing is pretty funny.
It feels pretty downtrodden. It feels.
But even the manner of speaking. So they asked this government employee, how does it feel with everything that's going on, all the changes with this administration? And this person who you can just tell is a woman. They've disguised her voice, but she goes, I'm pretty downtrodden. It's like, you're a female leftist.
It feels pretty downtrodden. It feels awful. It feels like we are abandoned by our government, by our Secretary of State. I've been trying to talk to as many of my family members as I can. I've worked for USAID, I think I mentioned, for over 10 years. So I know this building inside and out. I know so many people who have given their lives to this. And we don't do it because the pay is fantastic. It's not glamorous.
Even that part there. We don't do it because the pay is fantastic.
Have given their lives to this. And we don't do it because the pay is fantastic. It's not glamorous. If you've ever worked for a US agency, you know that the perks are not great. We're not allowed to, buy each other gifts more than $20 because there are incredibly, incredibly tight rules about what you can and cannot do in the government. And we are meticulous about those ethics and about being honorable with those rules and about being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. And so to have this sort of
being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars? That's upspeak.
To be vilified by a billionaire who has decided that he's unilaterally going to take help away from the poorest people in the world, and he's doing it on
World?
behalf of the American people, is particularly gross and horrifying. And I am angry, I am sad, I am devastated for my colleagues, for myself, for my family, and for the American people. It's awful, it's cruel, it's gross, and it's wrong.
There is this perception that people who work in this space are politically not aligned with the president's politics. How do you respond to that? Are people motivated by politics where you work?
This question is so funny because it almost feels like you're watching a comedy sketch with the way that the interviewer asks it with their eyes. Because of course they are. Of course these are all leftists. Of course they are. Like this one who's anonymous. Now listen to her try and pretend like they're not politically at odds with Trump or there's no political animus towards him or anything. We know you're a leftist. Come on.
You know, that is a really good question. Civil servants are, at their core, sworn to uphold the rules of our government, of our constitution, and to serve each incoming administration. That is why each administration, when they come in, they bring in political appointees. And those are people typically at senior positions who help create a lot of policy. And we follow that policy. And we align with whatever the foreign policy priorities of each president and administration is. That's because, as I said, we serve American interests abroad.
Okay, let me pause here. So as Libby pointed out, you are lying because if you aligned with whatever president comes in, you're on board with their goals and what their administration is doing on behalf of the American people, well, then you would be on board with them coming in and auditing the federal government and putting a lot of people on temporary leave and firing some other people and figuring out where's all of our money going and is there any waste and is there any fraud. These are the goals. This is why we, the American people, elected this president. And so if you were telling the truth that you're on board with whatever incoming administration wants to do, then you wouldn't be doing this whiny, complainy interview about boo-hoo and trying to pretend like it's something about, trying to pretend like you care. Oh, all these people are going to be affected in other countries. It's horrible and sick and gross. It's you. You care about you and your job being protected. And you seem to think that as long as it's just a couple people at the top that leave with each outgoing administration and new ones come in, that you're fine. No. We don't want people also in there wasting government money, wasting taxpayer money if you're not aligned with the goals that the administration has laid out on behalf of the American people. Bumbledore, thanks for the $5 super chat. Bumbledore says, sounds like a Zer or a Zim. They are literally shaking, to quote the great JD Vance. I don't really care, Margaret. Yes, I don't really care. Margaret, I don't care. It's just this part is just fascinating, this little piece, this little puff piece CBS did. And they're like, no, we're not political. Just trust us, guys. Like, we're totally cool with whatever each incoming administration wants to do. Those are our goals too. Except if those goals happen to be reducing the size of the federal government, then we're not cool with it.
President and administration is. That's because, as I said, we serve American interests abroad. That is our top line. That is what we do. So when Donald Trump came in, a whole bunch of people from our agency left. Those were Biden appointees. And that happens every time that there's a handover in administration. What our personal politics are ultimately does not affect the work that we do on behalf of American people.
Really? Your personal politics have nothing to do with you going on CBS and doing a little hit smear piece on the incoming administration that you work for? Your personal politics have nothing to do with that. You going on there and, as Kevin says, getting a tongue bath. This isn't Kevin says, I would love to see this bureaucrat in a hostile interview rather than this tongue bath. Yeah, right. Coming on here and they give you the anonymous treatment and they talk to you like you're a child, because it does seem like you speak like you're rather young. This is your personal politics, have nothing to do with this choice to do this. Okay.
My personal politics don't play a role in us delivering small food packets to kids in Sudan that are literally hours away from dying. I'm not sure why it would matter if we are Republicans or independents or Democrats as we try to do that work. It is nonpartisan. We have taken a duty to uphold the law and the Constitution. And as I said, we are incredibly resilient, smart, dedicated people who.
So if this person's job, I don't even trust that this person's job is related to anything. This example that they just gave, this could be one of those things where people just say like an example of something they know or they think that is being done by USAID that they don't necessarily do. So my point is, this person is not on the record saying that's what I do. And so, but I think they'd be happy for us to think that's what they do. Does that make sense? Even if that is their job, though, is delivering food packets to children in Sudan, if that is their job, well, there are carve-outs for that. We've already seen there are carve-outs for the USA jobs that actually are humanitarian in nature. Maybe that's why they're still there. Maybe that's why they're anonymous. If that's what their job indeed is, if it's actually humanitarian. ADL, how can anyone take this seriously? We have become too used to adults who talk like vapid teenagers. Yes. This person talks like a college student or a high schooler. The manner of speech, the upspeak at the end of sentences, the use of words.
We'll pivot. We will make sure that we are answering the mandates of the president and our Secretary of State to the best ability that we can. But there has to be a good faith effort to want to do that with us and to work in partnership with us and to tell us what they want us to do. What are the priorities here? What are Marco Rubio's priorities?
What are the priorities here? Has it not gotten through? I wish this interviewer, I wish Margaret, I would ask her, would say, well, is it not clear that the priorities are to identify taxpayer fraud and waste and to reduce the size of federal government and to eliminate excess spending? Like that's what this whole interview is about. That's what the priorities are. Are you still confused? She's sort of saying, I wish somebody would just tell us like what the priorities are.
But there has to be a good faith effort to want to do that with us.
Sorry, I thought I was already playing it and I was just playing it on my end. Here we go. I wanted to hear that part. I wanted you guys to hear that part again.
Who will pivot. We will make sure that we are answering the mandates of the president and our Secretary of State to the best ability that we can. But there has to be a good faith effort to want to do that with us and to work in partnership with us and to tell us what they want us to do. What are the priorities here? What are Marco Rubio's priorities? Is it to our allies in Ukraine? Is it to help us uphold this fragile peace in Gaza?
Wow, Margaret. I would say the first priority should be to Americans. That's the first priority. It's to the American voter. It's to American citizens. First priority. Now, if we're going to start talking about international ones, they're going to come way down here, but none of those can violate that first priority. It's sort of like the Ordo Amoris that we were talking about last week, the order of loves, which is a natural thing that humans do, where you sort of prioritize different duties and responsibilities, different loves. And a Christian, for example, would say God is at the top of that hierarchy, and then your spouse, and then your children, and it goes down from there. If you're talking about priorities, if you're talking about a State Department or some type of organization that's receiving funds from the American taxpayer, whose job it is to work on behalf of the American taxpayer, the first priority is always going to be the American citizen. And any other priority comes below that. And if it contradicts that first one, well, then it's got to go. It's just, yeah. Lily of the Fox Valley. I love how she sounds so surprised that people want to stop paying for international charity. Yeah, and it's not even charity, as we uncovered as we were looking through just a tiny bit of the information on Friday. A lot of it is not even charity. It's basically international propaganda and subterfuge. Let's put it that way. Regime change. It's operations on behalf of United States intelligence agencies and foreign interests, our foreign interests. And we don't even know how much of our money's going to that. John, America has become the world's piggy bank and laughingstock. Yes, Kevin, we're $37 trillion in the hole and adding $1 trillion every quarter. Budgets need to be cut. Yes. And foreign expenditures need to be first. Yes. Why, for example, does the BBC need U.S. charity? Yeah, some of that USAID money was going to the BBC. Why? Why? Okay. We're going to go back to this article. I want to pick up where I left off about, the Pentagon. I just thought that was just funny. I wanted to touch on some of the FEMA stuff that was in this article, and then I wanted to show you that video because it just, this is what the media is doing. They're melting down. They're doing these ridiculous puff pieces like, let's get a government employee in here and use a shadow box on their face and disguise their voice to come in and do some hatchet piece on why this is all terrible, right? Okay, another agency that could soon be feeling the presence of Elon Musk is the Pentagon. We're returning to that CNN article from earlier. The issue of the SpaceX chief's billions of dollars in federal contracts raises particular red flags here, although the second Trump administration seems utterly unconcerned with ethics issues and conflicts of interest involving Musk or any other senior official. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth insisted on Sunday Morning Futures on Fox Business that, quote, we welcome Elon Musk and DOGE coming into our department to help us identify additional ways in which we can streamline the process, fast track acquisitions, cut waste, cut tail, and put it to tooth, end quote. I like all of those, what do you call them? The metaphors he's using. I don't want to put it to tooth. Okay. Cut tail and put it to tooth. What's that from? House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan, meanwhile, told Manu Raju on CNN's Inside Politics that Trump was doing exactly what he was elected to do. Quote, no one wants to defend the waste, fraud, and abuse. So they attack the guy who's exposing all of the waste, fraud, and ridiculous things we're spending money on, the Ohio Republican said of Musk. And referring to Trump, Jordan added, frankly, 77 million people knew he was going to do this, and they voted for him on election day because of this. Thank you, Jim Jordan. Mic drop. This is why we voted for him. This is this is it. This is what we want. Yet even presidents do not acquire the power to ignore laws passed by Congress and the constitutional reality that lawmakers have the power of the purse. So while Trump is riding high now as Musk trains his wrecking ball on new targets in Washington, a massive and historic constitutional battle may lie ahead. Well, it may lie ahead. I'm sure you guys are going to try and bring whatever you can. I've yet to see in all these different hit pieces, I haven't really seen anyone lay out like, here's the law that they're breaking. I don't know. I don't know enough to know, oh, it's this one. I'm not some constitutional scholar. But I haven't seen the media, although they keep telling me, oh, this is an overreach of the executive branch and they're breaking laws by cutting the size of federal government and figuring out where all the taxpayer dollars are going. They're breaking laws. Which laws? You haven't told us. I can't really evaluate it until you tell us. One of the things that people have been talking about is how how in the tech world, have you guys heard this expression in the tech world, move fast and break things? So this is something like a lot of the Silicon Valley people and a lot of the startups, they used to say this sort of expression that in order to succeed in tech, you can't be slow, you can't be bloated and bulky, you have to be efficient, and you have to take risks and you have to move fast and not be afraid to break things in the pursuit of innovation and saving people money and making a product that people are going to want and doing something revolutionary, right? And so they've sort of brought this to government. I mean, I've been saying on this show, I know you guys in the comments have been talking about how in the past few weeks, it just seems like they're moving so fast this time that Trump's in there, and it's great. And I wonder how much of that has to do with Elon's influence of like, look, you said you're going to drain the swamp. People feel like you didn't really do that last time. Maybe he's had people saying this to him. You need to take a tech approach. You need to get in there, and in the first few weeks, you need to be doing so much that they can't even catch up. And I if that's the goal, they're doing a great job, because yes, the press is hit piece. They're trying to counter. They're trying to do what they usually do and smear, but they're having to move so fast. They almost don't have time. Like none of their narratives are sticking really, other than the overarching. They have this narrative of, Trump bad, Elon bad. Like that's it. But other than that, if you ask any people on the left, what's happening this week, that, what's Elon doing? They don't really know any specifics. Like, cause the narratives, everything's moving so fast that they're trying to hit everything and they can't. Does that make sense? And so I feel like they brought this into the government, this whole idea of like, we're going to move fast and we're going to break some things and we're going to fire some people, by the way. Okay. Let's look at this DEI one. I had some other stuff queued up, but like I said, things are moving so fast. I was just looking at at Elon's timeline, and this one's new. This was not even in my list to show, so I haven't seen this yet. But DOGE just terminated. It says breaking news. DOGE just terminated a $2.3 million contract for a ridiculous VR virtual reality training course that taught soldiers how to, quote, have difficult conversations about DEI. You can't make this stuff up. Now, if you look at this video, we're about to watch a clip of this. I haven't seen it yet. This guy's name is Hugo Escobar, and he's the diversity and inclusion coordinator for space-based Delta One. Why? This is like, that's what Libs of TikTok has to say. Like, you can't make this up because it's so ridiculous. Why are we paying for this crap? 2.3 million for a virtual reality training course that teaches soldiers how to have difficult conversations about DEI. Difficult conversations, by the way, is one of their favorite cult phrases. They have a lot of different organizations. There's one in Georgetown, Texas, in my little community. It's called Difficult Conversations. They have these difficult conversations. If you see difficult conversations in any kind of an online group, you just know that that's going to be a woke cult. That's good. And the conversations are not difficult. In fact, they're not conversations at all. You don't get to have a different opinion. There's nothing about it that's difficult, and there's nothing about it that's a conversation. Okay, this is what we were spending $2.3 million on.
Is an opportunity to have a difficult conversation when it comes to DEIA. There is an avatar, and behind that avatar, there is a trained individual who is going to have the conversation. He or she will be able to either elevate the difficulty of the conversation
or
back down and understand. The time that we're living in is we have conversations that are difficult, specifically dealing with people or differences of opinions. It's important for us as individuals and leaders and service members to have these conversations and allow us to practice having these conversations that are often very difficult to have. This is for airmen, this is for guardians, this is for civilians of all ranks enlisted and officer.
Are you children? You are military service members, and you are doing what amounts to like some kind of kindergarten brainwashing of like, and what I mean by that is you're sneaking in brainwashing under the premise of doing some kind of kindergarten level class on how to talk to people. You've made it into adulthood, and in fact, you've made it to the U.S. military, and you don't know how to do what the kids call adulting yet. You don't know how to have conversations yet. Just curious. This is the kind of stuff that needs to be cut. Jacob's over on Rumble. We are simulcasting on Rumble. If you hate YouTube, you can go watch us over there. Thanks for holding down the fort, Jacob Castro. He says, "What is this? Middle school? Grow up." Yes. Nobody wants to spend money on this. And the idea that we should, that we are somehow, we are the bad guys. Trump's the bad guy or Musk is the bad guy because we want to know about this kind of crap, and we want to know what our money's going towards. The idea that we're somehow like we're in the wrong for wanting to know. No, no. We may come upon things that we're going to disagree on whether or not we should be spending on leftists. What, you probably think we should be spending $2.3 million on some virtual reality chatbot on how to have difficult DEI conversations like a kindergartner in the military. You probably think we should be spending on that. I don't know. I don't think we should spend on it. The point is, though, that did you even know we were doing that? No. Don't we get to know? Rodney, this is the degree to which this DEI mass psychosis has taken over even the military. Oh, yes. The military's full of it. And they're going to be, that's part of one of Trump's executive orders is none of this DEI crap in the military. Okay, I've got a few more here I wanted to pull up. Can you guys see this one? This is a post from Mario Nawful. I don't know who this guy is exactly. Do you guys know? I know that Elon shares him quite a bit, like news or, he's always got like headlines or things like that. Anyway, Mario Nawful, he says, DOGE cancels $17 million Liberia tax project. Where should the savings go? The DOGE team just canceled a $17 million USAID project that would have wasted U.S. taxpayer dollars on tax policy advice for Liberia. Why was this even approved in the first place? $17 million. This is exactly the kind of reckless spending that Trump is shutting down. Jason Calcanis suggests a simple, effective plan. Use the first $1 billion in savings from DOGE's cuts, split it between deficit reduction and tax cuts for Americans making under $50K. This is how government should work, cutting waste abroad and putting American taxpayers first. More savings, less debt, lower taxes for working Americans. Who could argue against that? So there's a suggestion on where it should go. But, $17 billion to give Liberia tax policy advice. Why are we giving tax policy advice? Is it because we're the very best at taxing and wasting money? Let us tell you how to tax your citizens into oblivion, Liberia. We're going to come in. You know what, Liberia? You know who's paying for this? Our taxpayers are paying for it. Can you just imagine how that meeting went? They're like, look, you you wouldn't want to get tax advice from just anyone, Liberia. You need to get it from the very best at taxing its citizens. We tax our citizens to come over here and do this lesson for you. They don't even know. They don't even know they're paying for it. They have no idea. We'll teach you these tricks and others. We'll teach you how to do this here in Liberia. Tax policy advice. Okay. I've got another one. Where's the one about the judge? Okay. So this judge, this activist judge, has decided that, as mentioned in that CNN article that we were looking at, that Elon and Trump can't do this somehow. He's decided, they're not going to be able to do this, or he's going to stop them. And so we've got this piece here from ABC News just to tell us a little bit more about this. Of course, they title it "Trump, Vance, and Musk Take Aim at the Courts as Judges Halt Some of the Second Term Agenda." I think this battle will define Trump's presidency, one legal expert said. I think it might too. You know why I think it might, though, is because can you imagine a president coming in and doing what Trump is doing, actually getting shit done that we care about, that the American voter, the American taxpayer cares about? It matters a great deal to me that they're cutting these little programs like tax advice for Liberia. It's like 2 million here, 20 million there, such and such, 40 billion here. That makes me happy that they're actually doing something. And so will it be the defining battle of his presidency? Maybe. And if it is, it's because, wow, we finally got someone who came in and tried to do something different. Finally, it's refreshing. President Donald Trump and key members of his administration are lashing out at judges. Look how they phrase it once again, telling us what to think. They're lashing out at judges. Why don't they phrase it, judges are lashing out at Trump and Vance and Elon Musk? Think about that, leftists. Why don't they phrase it that way for you? They tell you in so many subtle ways in everything you read what you should be thinking. And once you get out of that cult, you see it everywhere. But when you're in it, it's like, I don't even think you guys notice this. They could easily have said judges lashing out, but no. Trump and a few key members of his administration are lashing out at judges who have halted some of his second-term agenda, suggesting they don't have the authority to question his executive power. So far, the courts have pushed back on Trump's attempts to end birthright citizenship, freeze federal grants, and the overhaul of federal agencies like USAID and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Over the weekend, the administration hit another roadblock when a federal judge temporarily restricted Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from accessing the Treasury Department's vast federal payment system, which contains sensitive information of millions of Americans. Musk accused the judge of being corrupt and called for him to be immediately impeached. Vice President J.D. Vance, as he's done before, questioned judicial oversight of the executive branch. In an interview with ABC News' George Stephanopoulos last year, Vance suggested a president can ignore a court's order, even a Supreme Court order that he considers illegitimate. Quote, and this is what Vance said on Twitter about this over the weekend: "If a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general in how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges are not allowed to control the executive's legitimate power," Vance said over the weekend. Trump was asked on Sunday about Vance's comments and some of his setbacks in court. Let me just back up here before I continue about what Trump said about it. You notice how they just kind of glaze over this part right here, where they're talking about, oh, it had something to do with the Treasury Department, and this judge has restricted Elon Musk from accessing Treasury data. It's not just DOGE, though. They're basically saying that this Treasury data is not going to be released, that there's no transparency. Like, there's no way to audit it. They're basically, this judge is trying to say you can't see where everything's going, which is ridiculous. I've got an article. We'll look at specifically what that was about. I'll get back to this one, though. Trump was asked on Sunday about Vance's comments and some of his setbacks in court. Quote, "When a president can't look for fraud and waste and abuse, then we don't have a country anymore," Trump told reporters. And that's exactly what that judge is saying. He's saying it's not just Elon Musk can't look at it. It can't be looked at. So Trump says, if a president can't look for fraud and waste and abuse, we don't have a country anymore. So we're very disappointed. But with the judges, that would make such a ruling, but we have a long way to go. No judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of decision, the president added. It's a disgrace. It is a disgrace. Their pushback against the judiciary comes as Trump and his allies assert a sweeping theory of presidential power when they say gives him sole control of the executive branch. Legal experts told ABC News they believe the Trump administration is trying to set up cases to test that theory before the Supreme Court. Democrats say Trump is trying to subvert checks and balances under the U.S. Constitution, including the role of Congress in setting the scope of federal agencies and conducting oversight. Quote, I think this is the most serious constitutional crisis the country has faced, certainly since Watergate, said Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy. Quote, the president's attempting to seize control of power and for corrupt purposes. Oh my gosh, for corrupt purposes? Again, the gall of these elitists, of these bureaucrats, of these establishment, of these corrupt politicians who are okay with the status quo. They're okay with us spending 40 billion here, 40 billion there, $1 million here, 2 million there, 20 million there. They're okay with us, the taxpayer, paying for all of this, footing the bill for all of this, and never knowing where it's going. And they're cool with all the fraud and the waste of our money. That's not corruption somehow. But looking for the corruption, that's corrupt. Trying to do an audit and see where everything's going, that's corrupt. Trying to cut waste, that's corrupt. Yes, Rosa, sounds like a lot of confession by projection to me. John says, Keri, never question me. Wait, does that sound like cluster B to me? Yes, cluster B. Never question me. That's it. That's the government's like, they're saying you can't look. You can't look in the Treasury Department's files. You can't have this information. I'm going to share this ABC tab instead. Okay, this one is specifically about the Treasury Department. Federal judge blocks Elon Musk's DOGE team from accessing sensitive taxpayer data. The judge said allowing DOGE access would cause, quote, irreparable harm. A federal judge in New York granted the 19 states suing over DOGE's access to highly sensitive taxpayer records a temporary restraining order. Judge Paul Engelmayer wrote that the court believed the plaintiffs would face irreparable harm in the absence of injunctive relief. Quote, that is both because of the risk and the new policy that the new policy presents of the disclosure of sensitive and confidential information and the heightened risk that the systems in question will be more vulnerable than before to hacking, the judge wrote. 19 states sued the Trump administration to block government employees associated with Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from accessing taxpayer records, including the social security numbers and bank account information of millions of Americans. Do you know something that Elon, what's so funny is Elon is like everything they're finding out, he's putting a lot of it on X. Like, talk about transparency. Like, as soon as they find it out, he's putting a lot of it up on X. And he put something up yesterday. There's so much of it again that it's like a water spigot just going off. It's like, how do we even know which things to focus on, much less like the media trying to combat it. But one of the things he put up was that in the system, like the back end or whatever for the Social Security Administration, that they don't have it set up so that there are no duplicate numbers, so that any duplicate numbers would be flagged. It's not set up that way. It just seems like it should be, right? And so he was saying this means that there could be multiple people using social security numbers that we don't even know about because this simple sorting computer programming fix is they're not using it. They don't have anything that's like, hey, ding, ding, ding. You've got 4 people here with different names using the same social, for example. So there's probably a lot of social security fraud happening, right? I had this happen to me. I'm going to take this down for just a second. I don't know if anybody else in the chat, tell me if you've ever had something like this happen to you. Because a lot of times, from what I understand, is they wouldn't even know a lot of times. Well, it happened to me. I got called in back, this was over 10 years ago when I lived in Los Angeles. They did notice at some point that there was another person using my social security number in another state, in a state I used to live in. And I figured out, based on where this person was located, where they probably got access to or stole my number from a certain job I had worked. But I had no idea who this person was. It was an illegal immigrant, I'm sure. And anyway, the Social Security Administration called me in because they were like, oh, you owe all these back taxes for all these years where you've been working with this social. And I'm like, but that's not me. That's not my name. And I haven't even been in those states. That's not me. It's not my name. I haven't been in those states. I had to go in. It was such a long process to get my social taken off of whoever that person was using it, and to get that disassociated from me, so I didn't owe back taxes, because whoever that was, assuming they're an illegal alien, was using a stolen social, my social, to work to get the job, but then wasn't paying any taxes. And so the government came to me and was like, hey, you owe all these taxes on all this income. I was like, no, I don't. Anyway, that was really annoying. And I did get it sorted out. But when I saw Elon posting about this and about social security numbers, and that they don't have any system that automatically tells them if social security is like using duplicate numbers, like there's nothing. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is the government. They're not paying for this. That's just, we're out of all the things our money goes for, you would think it might go for some basic infrastructure or digital infrastructure or computer programs that are like, hey, what's the simplest thing we can do to make sure there's no fraud? Why don't we have something in the system so if there's like multiple names using the same social security number, it pops up? Anyway, I know that was a little bit of a rant, but that was one of the things that he posted that he noticed. So this is why he wants to know. This is why they want to be able to get into the system and see, how is all this stuff being tracked? Is there fraud happening? He also tweeted something about like a large number of people who don't have social security numbers, who just don't even, it's not even showing up. So it's like, you know, they're finding all kinds of crazy stuff. Let them. Okay. The lawsuit filed by New York Attorney General Letitia James and 18 other state attorney generals alleges that the breach of sensitive Treasury Department data, quote, poses huge cybersecurity risks, end quote, and violates multiple federal laws. Quote, this new expanded access policy poses huge cybersecurity risks that put vast amounts of funding for the states and their residents in peril, end quote, the lawsuit said. James hailed the decision in a post on X Saturday. Quote, this morning, we won a court order blocking Elon Musk, the world's richest man. I love how they always say that. Like, I think they say that because in their minds, it sounds like something from a movie, like Lex Luthor or something, or Dr. Evil. They always say, the world's richest man. And it's as if it's an insult also, which is kind of funny, you know? The world's richest. Anyway, this morning we won a court order blocking Elon Musk, the world's richest man, from accessing Americans' private data. Musk and his DOGE employees must destroy all records that they've already obtained. Filed in the Southern District Court of New York, the lawsuit asked the court to give an order that would prohibit so-called, quote, special government employees, end quote, associated with DOGE from accessing records held by the Bureau of Fiscal Service, which functionally serves as the checkbook for the federal government. The lawsuit comes as Musk's unprecedented budget slashing has impacted nearly every department of the federal government. Yes! Prompting multiple federal lawsuits. On Wednesday, a federal judge temporarily blocked DOGE from accessing Treasury Department records, although 2 employees of the Treasury Department associated with Musk continue to have read-only access to the records. All of the state's residents whose personal identifiable information and sensitive financial information is stored in the payment files that reside within the payment systems are at risk of having that information compromised and used against them, the lawsuit said. The state attorneys general argued that DOGE is interfering with congressionally appropriated funds, violates the Administrative Procedures Act by being arbitrary and capricious, and violates both separation of powers doctrine and Trump's obligation to faithfully execute the law. Okay, at least they named some things here, because I've been waiting for them to tell me, like, what law are they violating? So it says violates the Administrative Procedures Act by being arbitrary and capricious. That's funny. That's kind of like your lockdown, your unconstitutional lockdowns that you guys did that you never were held accountable for during the COVID years, because those, from what I recall, were unconstitutional because they were arbitrary, meaning you closed some businesses like small mom and pop businesses that a lot of them ended up going under because they couldn't survive it. You closed those, but then you arbitrarily left a lot of big box corporate conglomerate chain stores open. You let them operate. So that was an arbitrary application of those lockdowns, right? And capricious. That's why I know what those words are, because you guys did that and got away with it. No, of course, two wrongs don't make a right. I just like to point out when they're hypocrites. I don't like it when people try to hold others to a standard that they themselves do not hold, which is what the left does. It's in their Rules for Radicals, Saul Alinsky's book. They try and hold people to standards that they themselves don't meet and will never meet and don't try to meet. And I don't like the expectation that I shouldn't notice it or call attention to it. And I do notice it, and I will call attention to it, because when I was in the leftist cult, when I was in the woke cult, I didn't notice it. I didn't notice the hypocrisy. I would have needed someone to show it to me. It's almost like your brain gets turned upside down. And you're just looking at things in this very skewed way. And until somebody shakes it for you or sets it, right side up, you don't even have the ability to look at it from that perspective. I know a lot of leftists who still, now some of the ones I know in real life have started asking questions, who've started softening some of their views and becoming more critical when it comes to COVID policy. But I know others who are they just bought it line, hook, and sinker. They bought all of that crap. The unconstitutional mandates, all of it. And then they have the gall to run around and talk about, want to talk about unconstitutional or this or that. And it's like, why should we listen to you? Why should I listen to you? You don't prove that you need to prove that you are capable of seeing that when it happens without the media telling you. John, we need to figure out what the triggers are which help them to see their hypocrisy. I don't know. I think sense of humor and sarcasm helps sometimes, like kind of mocking, a little bit of a mocking tone, but also there's like some balance that I try to strike there. If I'm kind of making fun, but I'm also inviting you to join me in making fun of how crazy the establishment is. Oh, Well, oh yeah. Sometimes I read things. I don't know if they just send me off I'm sorry. I go on a tangent. It's not necessarily related to what you were talking about. I apologize. He says, you're missing context from my previous post. Musk is benefiting as a contractor and Trump is on board with CBDC. That's what is wrong. Benefiting. Oh, I see what you're saying. I think you're saying he's benefiting. If you want to spell that out more for me, I don't have time to scroll through the previous post, and if you don't want to, no worries. CBD, central bank digital currency. Okay. I wanted to show you this about the deficit. This is another post just about how bad things are. This is from I don't follow this person, but it's someone, Elon retweeted this, and this guy named Geiger Capital says the train is out of control. The first 4 months of fiscal year 2025 produced a deficit of $838 billion. That's $306 billion more than the deficit recorded in the same period last fiscal year. We are running a $2.5 trillion annual deficit, $2.5 trillion annually. And I just bring this up because Elon says, holy cow, the deficit's worse than expected. Fraud and waste accelerated massively. It's just that it's been heading this way for a long time, though, and nobody seems to care. It's not like a sexually culture war issue, or it's not some, let's argue about this, this which culture war is what I'm engaged in. I think that's how you win the war, because politics is downstream from culture, right? But at the same time, we've got this looming economic problem, and nobody really wants to pay too much attention to it, because I think it's just nobody knows what to do about it. And it's not something that's going to grab headlines the same way. And I don't think they know how to, I don't think they know how to make it like a tribalist issue. Bumbledore says, well, in a healthy society, politics is downstream of culture. Okay, AH clarified. Thank you, sir. He says, Musk is benefiting by using gained access for his X platform and infrastructure to eventually run our lives. Oh, I see your fear there. Yes. Well, I have my own, I don't know. I have my own fears about what could happen down the road. Musk is not someone who I entirely trust. And a lot of the stuff he has said about AI and, just re-engineering the human mind and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, nah, I'm not on board with all that. I think that I don't think he has God in his life. And so sometimes if you don't have God, you sort of start to view yourself as a God, or mankind, I guess, as a God, and like anything is possible. And I think sometimes he blurs those lines. So I'm definitely skeptical about him, about where things could go. But at the same time, where he's at right now, like trying to help cut a lot of this excess fat and this waste, this taxpayer waste, I am supportive of it. I guess just because I've been wanting to see this happen for a long time. Am I shooting myself in the foot? Am I going to be regretting this down the road? Am I going to be like, why did we allow him all this access? Maybe. I just don't see how that plays out quite yet. But I hear what you're saying, AH, and I will think about that more. Yes, the transhuman stuff. That's what Adam Worrell said. That's the stuff that freaks me out. Bumbledore. I didn't say it all nasty like that, dude. Okay. You guys, I might need to take a break, and I think we're going to just continue covering this DOGE stuff as it rolls out. There's so much happening. I think I'm probably going to maybe, like I said, do some extra streams this week. I'm not sure yet. It depends on my gig job schedule, but my voice is hoarse. I need to take a break from it. I wanted to end on this one Ron Paul thing, though. And this is Ron Paul saying, DOGE is ripping through the federal government like a tornado. This morning, it has been reporting that DOGE sent out firing notices to 9,400 USAID employees, leaving only 611. Democratic politicians are furious, of course, but we hope that when it's all said and done, that all politicians, Democrat and Republican, are furious with DOGE. Then we will know that it was a job well done for the American people. I'm just going to leave you on that. I love that, because he's right. This is not a partisan thing. It's sort of that idea that in a good compromise, nobody's happy. And it's sort of like, if we're really cleaning out the federal government, it's not like any one party is going to be happy. Like they're all part of the government. So I wanted to end on the Ron Paul note because I thought that was great. This is not partisan. This is about doing what the American people want, which is reducing the size of federal government. Got to get our money back, says John. Yeah, or quit taking so much of it. God bless Ron Paul, says Randy. Yes, based. Quit taking all our money. 30%. Go back and read, if you have time, read about when they first instituted the income tax and how they promised it would never go above like 1 or 2 or 3%. That still just cracks me up. Look, don't worry. Let us do this. We promise it'll never, ever, ever. That's kind of like with how they wanted to look in our bank accounts with the Patriot Act. Anything over $10,000, we want to look at it. Don't worry. It'll never be below 10,000. And now they're like, anything above 600, we want to look at it. Okay. Just keep pushing. Robin says, hey, I got to see the stream live. I love watching your shows. Oh, great. I'm glad you were here. Thank you. John says, yes, income tax. It was started at 1%. And they were promising, oh, look, we'll never take more. Kevin, do you think they knew that was a lie when they said it 90 years ago? I think they just didn't care. Or they didn't. I don't think they knew it was a lie. It's just they weren't going to be around. I don't think they could have envisioned how much money they take now, income taxes. I don't think they could have envisioned that. I don't think they thought too hard about what future politicians will do, unfortunately. Yes, John, they didn't care. It was the future's problem. It's kind of like us and the national debt. I feel like everyone's just sort of like, somebody's got to pay the bill for this, but not us. And like, nobody really cares about the deficit and everything. Like, maybe it'll be the next generation or the one after. It's sort of how, just passing the buck, as opposed to the best of mankind is when you leave things for your posterity, for the people who come after you. You leave things like cathedral building, which we talked about before. You spend your whole life working on this building that you're never going to get to see. It's not going to be you, and probably your kids won't get to see it either. They're going to work on it too, and then their kids are going to work on it, and 500 years down the road, the cathedral will be finished. And you're working on it for the benefit of those future generations. But now we live in the upside down world. What's the opposite? We don't do cathedral building. We do the opposite. We do debt building. We're like, hey, we're going to rack up all this debt, and down the road, future generations, they're going to have to pay for it. Ha ha. That's kind of where we're at, isn't it? Okay, guys. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you on Wednesday. We'll be back with a Popped Culture, myself and Mystery Chris at 8:00 Central. If you like the show, please hit like and subscribe. And it was good to see so many of you here. Good to see you, Therese. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye. But first, a word from our sponsor. Today's Deprogrammed episode is brought to you by exercise. That's right. Regular exercise has been shown to help boost energy levels and enhance your mood. It may also be associated with many other health benefits, both physical and mental, including a reduced risk of chronic disease. Exercise is defined as any movement that makes your muscles work and requires your body to burn calories. There are many different types of exercise, including walking, running, swimming, tennis, weightlifting, and breakdancing, to name a few. Exercise may even help you live a longer and more fulfilling life. And the best of all, it's absolutely free. That's right. If you're listening to this, you can benefit from exercise for absolutely free. All you need to do is go outside and run or walk to enjoy all the physical, mental, and spiritual benefits of exercise. And for an unlimited time, don't forget to think my promo code, Thank You God, to enjoy all the added psychological benefits of practicing gratitude at no extra cost.